via Marina. And we need to have a roll call first.
Well,
Councilmember Medina Dirksen. Councilmember Burnett. Councilmember Berkeley.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala.
Here.
Mayor Delgado.
okay, at the present time, we do lack a quorum to convene as a body, so we will wait for one of the other members to join us and be recognized.
Trying to think if we need to sit here or Shep, if I make you the host,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm thinking if I just do this, the meeting stays open, and then maybe I'll run home for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not doing nothing spectacular.
Okay, because I don't think I'm needed for this. I don't know what's going on with the rest of the council. If anybody's going to come, though, we might not have anybody else show up.
Well, if they show up, technically, I think we're only supposed to wait like 15 minutes, but that gives you time to run home. I'll be here.
Okay, bye.
Bob, should we clarify what Anita just said? Is that so that we wait 15 minutes and then we dismiss this night's meeting?
You're muted, Bob.
I'm not aware, is that in the policies, Anita? I'm not aware of that one.
I don't know. I was always told that when I was doing EDC meetings,
Oh,
that if we
So-
didn't have a quorum within 15
Yeah.
minutes, the meeting was canceled.
and I think this meeting is important enough that we would want to
Hold out.
put that rule to the side.
Works for
You
me.
do in college, right? If a professor doesn't show up.
Well,
Yeah.
well, there's a yes and moment. I mean, because yes, I mean, are you suggesting that we cancel the entire meeting? I
No,
mean,
ma'am.
that's what we've done.
Just closed session.
Oh, okay. Because in the past,
No,
okay.
I don't know that we can go to open session unless we deal with the issues in closed session is the problem, I think.
That's a good point.
So. I don't know.
Well, I suggest we just all hang out and wait, mute your microphones. Because everything's being recorded right now, and we'll wait and see who else shows up.
sounds like an appropriate course. Shep, I hope you feel better with this stuff.
I think I'm doing okay. Like I said, the fever's gone. Now I'm just dealing with all the other congested and body aches and
Got it.
all the yada yada yadas.
I was surprised to hear you were down.
Well, like I said, it took me 2 years to get it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'd rather be in. I'm trying to try to figure out how I can sneak in to do the packet, but I'm being forbidden.
Yeah.
Even after hours.
So,
If there's
One
any
thing-
closed session, if there's any language for the closed session on the 19th, I don't know what took place at the
okay, we did.
staff meeting, just email it so we can get it on the agenda.
Okay, that I can do.
Yeah.
We did talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll say one thing, that all these remote meetings and all the COVID pandemic and it's it's taught us to be, I think, a bit more nimble and creative than we generally are with our sort of hidebound processes and procedures, which is probably good, because really,
Gives us more leeway.
it does, and I know we're being recorded, so I don't mind being recorded saying this, but I think it's focused a little bit more on the importance of getting business done rather than being, a slave to a particular rule. I mean, Brown Act rules are certainly, rules we can't violate, but in this case, the state even saw fit to relax those, which was,
Mhm.
Bob,
yes, ma'am.
or Anita, either one. I'm gonna mute the sound because I need to jump and take another couple of calls, catch up on some things. So can you text me when we're ready to begin, or if we have a quorum? Do you mind doing that?
Sure. Kathy, what's the phone number we can text to?
It's actually Lisa. It's 917.
917, I'm sorry.
That's okay. 251
Uh-huh.
3360. Thank you.
Sure, we'll send you a text.
I see we're getting a quorum.
Hello, all. Christina's here.
All right. We now have a quorum. Should I do roll call over, or should I just acknowledge Councilmember Medina Dirksen as now present, and you can go into closed session? Bob, you're muted.
I'm going to try to send Lisa a text here, so
Okay.
just say we. Darn it. Not the best texture in the world. Okay, let's do that, and then we've established a quorum, and we can move to closed session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in closed session.
50 minutes longer on our closed session than our schedule. So we're coming in late here to open session. We had all 5 council members talking about the hotel agreement and another issue that our city attorney will briefly summarize when he comes on. But welcome to our January 11th special meeting for the hotel agreement and one other item on our consent. Let's go ahead with consent while we wait for our city attorney. We have Councilmember Berkeley, Councilmember Marina Dirksen, myself, and Councilmember Burnett, and we'll be joined by Councilmember Viola. Let's just move to closed session very quickly. I propose that I'll motion that we adopt our consent agenda item regarding remote teleconferencing our meetings.
Second.
Okay, does any member of the public wish to speak on our teleconferencing of our meetings? Elizabeth Billingsley, you're the only one with your hand up, but it might be for a different reason. But go ahead, Elizabeth, if you want to speak to that item on our consent agenda. Okay, I'm going to assume that Elizabeth has her hand up for another reason. We'll close public comment. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Anita?
Councilmember Medina Dirksen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley,
Yes.
Councilmember Burnett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala,
Yes.
Mayor Delgado.
Yes, that motion passes unanimously. Who did our roll call? That wasn't Anita. Who was that?
Yes, that was me.
Ah,
That was Shep.
it must be that ventriloquist doll that's on your head. All right, so we went out of order a little bit just to get the consent agenda item completed. And Bob, if you could give us a rundown of our closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for joining just a couple of minutes late. It took me a second to find the email. Anyway, the council did meet in closed session this evening on the 2 matters listed on the agenda. The first matter was real property negotiations on a portion of Opportunity Phase 1A, known as the hotel site. Council received information and provided direction concerning price and terms of payment, and met on a second matter of anticipated litigation regarding exposure to litigation, which concerned a matter of an alleged default of the development agreement with the other party, Wathen Castanos Peterson. Council was provided with information and gave direction in that matter. There was no reportable action taken this evening in closed session.
Thank you, Bob. And many of the public know that the Wathen Castanos issue would regard Sea Haven. They are the they are the developers of Sea Haven. Okay, so now we're going to move to a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Would someone like to volunteer to recite the pledge for us? Christina Medina Dirksen, council member, thank you. And we'll have a moment of silence and then the pledge led by Christina. Thank you.
And if you can, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Christina. Okay, so Lane and Karen Tiedemann, and we've mentioned this before, but Karen has been with our city as a consultant on these development agreements since, I believe, before the year 2000, so at least 20 years. And Karen, we continue to appreciate wholeheartedly all of your knowledge and your guidance. Thank you for being with us again tonight. So Karen and Lane, are you ready to go from here?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I think we'll just have Karen start off and give us an overview of where we're at in the hotel agreement. So Karen, go ahead.
Okay, so the item you have before you tonight is approval of a hotel development agreement related to what we refer to as Opportunity Site 1A of the Dunes development. The council discussed this agreement on December 6th, and we were given direction at that time. And so we are back with some revisions to the agreement. But just to sort of give everybody the background as a reminder, when the city entered into the operating agreement with Marina Community Partners in December of 2019, one of the terms of that operating agreement was that Marina Community Partners had to bring forward to the city a hotel developer for Opportunity Site 1A by December of 2020. And if they were unable to do that, the city had an option to acquire the site. Marina Community Partners gave the city notice in December of 2020 that they would not be able to bring a hotel developer forward, and notice that the city could exercise its option. That notice gave the city 12 months to exercise the option. So one of the actions that you took in December of 2021 was to authorize the city manager to give the option exercise notice to acquire the site. So that notice has been given. Under the terms of the operating agreement, we are supposed to close escrow on the hotel site within 60 days of the option exercise notice. So we need to close escrow on the site. I think the date is around February 18th. It's close if that's not the date. I always have to go back and check. Under the terms of the operating agreement, the purchase price for the site is $3.6 million, and the site is to be delivered with infrastructure to the site. So in the course of trying to determine whether to exercise the option, the city entered into discussions with several hotel developers and ultimately sort of narrowed those discussions down to the Dodwall Group, which is proposing to develop 3 hotel products on the site in 2 phases. So phase 1 would consist of 2 hotels. What is currently proposed is a 90-room Element Hotel and a 110-room AC Hotel, both of which are Marriott products. And then phase 2 would consist of an additional 100-room hotel. So the development agreement is set up to provide for phase development. The way we've structured the development agreement is that the city would assign its rights to acquire the property to the Dodwall Group. There are certain conditions that have to be met before we would assign that to him, which is why this is time sensitive, because we have slightly more than a month to accomplish this, including that we need to have a feasible financing plan. The developer needs to have an operating agreement with a hotel operator, and we have to have agreed with the developer on the terms of an operating covenant on the property that ensures that the property continues to be used as a hotel for some period of time, probably between 20 and 30 years. If those conditions are met, the Dodwall Group will then acquire the property, paying the $3.6 million purchase price. So the agreement also then goes into the development process and how that will occur with some timeframes. And just to be clear, attached to the agreement is a schedule of performance. We have been, and the city manager has been working out the schedule of performance with the developer. So what you have is the schedule of performance with some blank dates. But what has been discussed and is being proposed is the developer would submit construction drawings to the city for phase 1 of the project, which are those 2 hotels consisting of 200 hotel rooms, by February 2023. They would commence construction of phase 1 by June of 2023 and complete construction by June of 2025. With regard to phase 2, the agreement would require that the developer present an operating agreement with a hotel operator for phase 2 within 90 days of completion of phase 1. And then construction drawings for phase 2 would be submitted to the city within 4 months after submission of the operating agreement. and then construction would proceed from there. So those are the performance timelines that we are talking about. The other issue, so at your meeting on December 6th, you did give us some direction as to changes you wanted to see in the agreement. One of those changes is that there was a request that the agreement require that the hotel development meet the sustainability goals that were in the developer's proposal. What is included in the agreement right now at section 3.1 is that the hotel has to be LEED Platinum or better. But as one of the council members reminded me, we need to revise that language to say the equivalent, because there are other standards besides LEED, but we want the sustainability to meet that requirement. One of the other changes that was requested was that we clarify how the city's option to purchase the undeveloped portion of the hotel site would be determined. So under the terms of the agreement, if the developer doesn't meet the requirements for development, the city does have the option to repurchase the site. Primarily, I think our concern is with regard to phase 2, but it could apply to phase 1 if phase 1 doesn't get developed. But there was a concern that if phase 1 is developed, but phase 2 is not, then how would the city's purchase price be determined? What the agreement provides is the purchase price is based on a proportionality of square footage for phase 1 versus phase 2, multiplied by the 3.6 purchase price that the developer will pay. And just to note, one of the other concerns that was raised at the December 6th meeting was that we include within the agreement a specific timeline during which the property would have to be subdivided, and we would know how much of the property would be being used for phase 1 versus phase 2. Since we had that meeting, it came to my attention and others that the property is already subdivided. There are 2 parcels, so we don't need to put a timeline on that. And one of the exhibits, exhibit D, no, exhibit C, I think. Nope, exhibit A. Exhibit A shows that subdivision. So that will determine phase 1 versus phase 2, and the acreage we can determine right now if you should end up acquiring phase 2 because it doesn't proceed. I think that is the primary. The other changes that we made is we have completed the scope of development, which is exhibit D. And one of the requests from the council on December 6th was that as part of that scope of development, we include the parameters and goals that the developer had set out in their presentation to you. So when you go to exhibit D, you will see those bullet points are now included as part of the scope of development. And then we have completed the preliminary financing plan, which is exhibit C. So those are the primary changes. We are still involved in some back and forth with the developer. So we are requesting as part of the resolution that you grant the city manager authority to make non-substantive changes to the agreement so that we can get this completed hopefully in the next week so we can move forward on our rather tight time schedule. So I think those are the high points, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, there are a couple of matters I didn't realize until just now, so I didn't ask staff in advance about these 2 items. Who pays for the infrastructure installation that's required to be delivered to site?
That's MCP. So MCP is supposed to deliver it with infrastructure to the site, not infrastructure at the site, but up to the site. So.
And the site means not the hotel, but the border of the property boundary.
All right, thank you. And Brian McMinn, who's not with us tonight, hopefully he's enjoying himself on his vacation. He taught me about higher contingencies than I remember. And so I should have caught this in Exhibit C. I just saw tonight, contingency is $1 million on a $73 million project, 59 of which is construction. Is that contingency realistic?
I don't really know how to answer that. I think Debbie Kern has been dealing with the financial stuff, and it doesn't look like she's with us, but she's looked at the financing plan and thinks it's realistic. I don't know.
I would guess that there's some kind of industry standard that contingency is X percent of some other number. And if there is, if this was, far less than that standard, that maybe we're kidding ourselves a little bit. And let's say, Karen, that the contingency wasn't enough. How might that affect the developer? How might that affect the city?
Well, if the contingency isn't enough and the developer is unable to complete the project, that is a problem. We will, as part of the agreement, they do have to provide us with a final financing plan, and they do have to show us that they have the funds to finance the construction based on the hard construction bids. So we'll have more certain numbers before they start construction. I would also assume their lenders will be looking at this issue as well, because nobody wants partial completion.
Okay, so the only leverage we have to say to any developer to have a certain amount of dollars in contingency, the developer could say, well, I'm sorry, I can't finance based on including higher contingency, and then we'd be up against whether we want to just torpedo the whole project or let the contingency be whatever it's proposed initially, right? That's kind of where we are.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Councilmember Christina Medina Dirksen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Tiedemann, for your overview. I'd like you to know if you can define, first of all, MCP is Marina.
I'm sorry, Marina Community Partners.
Right. It's
Developer, the master developer of the dunes.
Okay, which is good for our 18 attendees to know
Yes.
that. And if you can define non-substantive changes.
So it's easier for me to define substantive changes. I think if we were to change the schedule, if we were to change the requirements for assigning the right to purchase, I would consider those substantive changes. If we did in any way increase the city's costs or the city's risks. Non-substantive changes would primarily be that we're in the same general parameter of what we're talking about tonight, but we may make minor changes as to timing on non-major submissions. So construction documents, as I said, is kind of the major submission, but maybe some of the prior submissions, we would change that. So there's steps like that, but I think timing, city risk, city costs, we certainly would come back to you.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
essentially, no change in the outcome that we're contemplating here.
So a bit of the concern was having to do with some of our timelines because of labor shortages and overall, industry trends. So would it be substantive change, or do they have to be mutually agreed upon if something were to happen and we need to readjust if another pandemic hit or something in a major scope? Can you speak to that?
Yes. So the agreement does include what we call a force majeure provision that grants either party the right to delay anything in the schedule if certain conditions occur that are beyond, essentially, conditions that are beyond the party's control. So the pandemic, I got a lot of force majeure notices on agreements. But things like labor shortages, that's a classic force majeure provision. Supply shortages would also be a trigger. Now, what our agreement says, and so if it's truly a force majeure that is already covered in the agreement, that's not a change. But our agreement does say that the maximum force majeure time period can be 24 months. So if it were to extend beyond that, the council would have to approve an amendment to the agreement.
Now, when we talk about these type of conditions, are they tied to some particular national standard or scale? Like if it's regional or if it's national? I'm just thinking, like, can you explain that to me? How it would be
Right.
called, what it would be tied to?
They are not tied to anything in particular, and this is where it gets a little tricky. There's a lot of case law on all of this, and essentially, you know, what the courts have said is it really has to be something such that the party's performance could not be achieved. It can't just be that it would be more expensive. It can't just be that it would be, you know, additional burden on a particular party or inconvenient. So, for instance, weather is a classic force majeure. There are a lot of cases on what weather constitutes, you know, how severe the weather has to be. The courts generally find, like, you know, if it rains a lot, that's probably not a force majeure. If it floods and you can't get to your site, that probably is. So it's things like that. So a labor shortage, I mean, the most classic labor shortages, of course, are when the country is at war. And, you know, a significant portion of our population has been conscripted. But what would constitute a labor shortage now, if we're not at war, is an issue that I think the parties would have to agree upon when it came up. Like if they go out to contract and they just can't get anybody to bid on it, not just that they can't get anybody to bid on it at their price, but they just cannot get anybody to bid because there isn't enough labor, that may be
So that
adequate.
speaks to a bit of an objective standard rather than just saying something or in their opinion.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's right. And that's what a court would require if we were to get into a dispute about what constitutes a force majeure delay.
Okay. Thank you. And one thing I just wanted to touch on, because I did have this question earlier for our city manager, and I thought it was important to at least educate our community on this, is why there is no CEQA environmental review necessary on this project. As I understand, this project was already approved under those under CEQA 19, oh boy, what was it? 2005, I believe. Right. Yes, I have a good memory. And if I understand correctly, impacts were studied at that point in time, but projected further. So so for anybody wondering, like, where's the environmental review on this? Can you just give me a really short synopsis, Lane, on the reason why? It's more for education for our, and for the record here.
Sure, or Karen can too.
Do you want me to?
Karen can give that the legal
Yep.
side.
Yeah, so you are correct. So an environmental impact report was prepared on the dunes development and certified by this council in 2005. And so the CEQA review for this agreement is that relying on that environmental impact report based on making the findings that are required under the California Environmental Quality Act, that there have not been significant changes in the project from what was studied. There has not been new information from what was studied, and there have not been significant changes in the surrounding environment. So based on making those findings, we feel that it's appropriate to rely on that EIR. As the hotel proceeds through city entitlements, we will be checking every step. If the project were to change significantly, you know, we might come back with some additional CEQA review, and we have included that in the hotel development agreement that may be required. But based on the information we have on the project now, the 2005 EIR is sufficient.
And this project did not require any kind of coastal commission approvals, is that correct?
No, I think it's
No.
consistent with the local coastal plan.
And lastly, when you mentioned no significant deviations or changes, I think what's key here, I'd like to get to just to answer is, was the current traffic patterns or how much traffic is going through that when we think about 2005 and we think about now, 2005, there wasn't a whole lot. It was just kind of a cut through to avoid Marina in some cases. And now it's bustling with business traffic. But was the business traffic forecasted?
Yeah, so the EIR that was prepared in 2005 analyzed the traffic from the fully built out Dunes project and took into account as part of the cumulative effects backgrounds what the fully built out Sea Haven project. And I also believe the fully built out Cypress Knolls, because Cypress Knolls was entitled at that point. So it actually probably estimated more traffic than what we may have currently, because we did essentially build out, assume full build out consistent with the base reuse plan for the base. And we have not achieved that full build out yet.
Also assume that the university would have grown by now in traffic
That's right.
more than it has.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much. And one last question I did have from a constituent, and how do we know that this hotel project has the capacity to, at full build out, how do I say this correctly? Do we have the capacity in the region, in the area, to have a hotel that justifies 300 rooms? And how did we know that?
The hotel developer and some of the other hotel developers, they hired a firm called CBRE. I'm not sure what CBRE stands for. They're out of San Francisco, and they are an expert across the nation. They do analysis of hotel and capacity, and so they did a study, and they said that there is sufficient capacity in our area to build hotels of these types.
And we've heard in previous public meetings that the market absorption is about 50 hotel rooms per year.
That's
so
correct.
if you consider everybody planning on building hotels, it probably exceeds the market absorption, maybe substantially, but not yet.
What is market absorption?
The rate at which hotel rooms can be expected to be occupied by, visitors.
Okay, so a minimum occupancy rate is what you're saying?
No, so the region could, our area could build an additional 50, and in addition to what is projected, an additional 50 hotel rooms every year our region could support. And that last study was done several years ago. So I think everyone is comfortable with that. In addition, Marriott has looked at that, and they have their chain does analysis too, that they will not approve a hotel if it will not be successful. And so Marriott on their end has also looked at that and believes that there's capacity in our area for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Just some good clarifying questions from constituents and for people to know. Thank you.
I will want to add on to that. And this is part of the importance of moving forward on this project is there's only so much capacity in your region, and Seaside and Sand City and Monterey, other cities are all continuing talking about developing hotels. The advantage that we have is we already have water allocated for it. All the environmental work has been done. These are entitled and ready to move forward. And so we are definitely a step up on the region if we move forward with this project of being able to at least build the initial capacity. We've heard of hotels being proposed in Seaside, one on their golf course now in Bayonet, and Sand City wants to build a couple of the Marriott products down there. And so we know there's only so much capacity. And so it's important that we move forward with ours to at least take that initial capacity.
to you, Christina and Lane. We'll go to Councilmember Kathy Biala.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question is looking at the map on page 43, that's Exhibit A. It's really blurry. So I just want some clarification on that. Is it possible to pull that parcel map up?
I don't know that I can. I function on multiple platforms, but I
Okay.
don't know if maybe Shep or Lane or somebody can.
Matt, can you pull that up and share that? Do you have that staff report?
I do. I mean, 1 minute. I'm not sure if it'll be any clearer though. It's not in the packet. It's in the packet.
Let me just say that what I can read is that there's parcel A, B, C, and then something called remainder parcel. I don't know, I can't see if there's any indication though which ones go in phase 1 and phase 2.
So parcel A is phase 1 and parcel B is phase 2. And those two together comprise what is being acquired.
Okay, and C and remainder parcel are what?
C will remain with Marina Community Partners, and the remainder parcel, and I am going to apologize, I had this discussion with, I think, Brian, and I cannot remember. I'm sorry. I mean, part of it is a road. I'm not sure what all of it is.
Yeah, so part of the remainder parcel, that is still Marina Community Partners, and that's multi-use. They have the ability to do residential if they want to there. They can do other multi-use. But you can kind of see on the right-hand side, that is kind of where the Second Avenue Road extension will be. And it'll continue up through the end of there. And to the left of that, where it says remainder parcel, that is all Marina Community Partners.
Okay, and then the smaller parcel C, you said that it's also Marina Community Partners, but what is that zoned as?
That's for retail development,
Retail, okay.
commercial development.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I understand completely the larger issues that might create exceptions to our scheduling on a force majeure, but you also were speaking about exceptions that are of non-substantial level. And I know that the schedule focuses mostly on the responsibilities and obligations of the developer, but as we all know that there is a dual responsibility because so many agencies, including the city of Marina, also has to process permits or inspections or whatever it is. And we have known in the past that that has sometimes been significant based on what's going on, on our side. So is that an area where it's it can be considered an exception to some of the scheduling of a non-substantial level? For example, if because of something we did that we can extend, the deadlines for 2 months or something like that. Is that an example of that?
Yes, so that would typically, if it's outside the control of one party, if it's outside the control of the party that is requesting the delay, then that would be considered a force majeure delay, even if it's in control of the other party. So that would qualify.
And if it's not as substantial, it might be a one-time thing, not like a weather, issue or economic downfall or something like that. So it can be as small as that to be considered force majeure.
Yeah, it can be, it can be a variety of things, but I think your example is the right one. If we have a delay in processing, and I'm looking at section 9.4 right now, our act or omission can be cause for the other party's force majeure.
I see.
Delay.
Okay, great, thank you. And I also do understand that the city is very much going to commit itself to timely responses to the deadlines for the sake of the development as well. So just to say that. Then the other thing is on page 27, there is on Article 5 in the agreement, issues of maintenance, and it says that it shall be well maintained, that the property will be well maintained as both external and internal appearance of the buildings, the common areas, and the parking areas. So I know that we have a group of the public who are very much always concerned about whenever we build, whether we assume properties or whether our existing facilities, that we always have to be looking out at maintenance. And we've been sorely neglectful in some aspects of properties that are owned by the city. So my question is, and obviously the hotels are really very carefully maintaining their properties. I mean, their whole customer base depends on how the hotels are kept up, their grounds and the buildings themselves. So I'm not so worried about that. But my question is, are there any public city-owned issues on those properties that we would have an obligation to maintain? Because oftentimes we have not been so compliant with those.
No. I mean, once the property is transferred to the developer, you don't have a maintenance obligation.
Not any side streets leading up to the properties or anything like that?
Lane, you might be able to answer. I think the street is public.
Yeah, Second Avenue going up through that will be a public street, and we'll have maintenance responsibilities from that. But from the boundary where Second Avenue is for the whole property, that's all private at that point. And so that will be the property owner's responsibility.
Right. And the truth is that you don't want the streets leading up to the beautiful hotel property to look shabby either. So that we have to have an obligation in that regard too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy brought up the point of delays that could be caused by permits and inspections, AT&T, PG&E, the state elevator authority. So we had several of these kinds of delays when the Springfield Suites was built. So my question is, has staff discussed with the developer of this hotel how we can put in advance a process we will follow so that we hear about those delays well before the final deadline, so that we don't wait until 2023 expecting a deadline to be met and we're told, well, the elevator was slowed up, somebody died on project, and other things happen, and that's why we're late. So we've been through this before. So has this hotel operator agreement been written with those considerations so that they're handled better this time around?
We have not really addressed that. I mean, we require that the building be commenced by a certain date and that it be completed by a certain date, but we don't have anything sort of in the midst there. That falls to the developer. I mean, we could add required reporting on a regular basis.
Well, I'd rather not suggest that for tonight, but I would like to ask if a subsequent agreement, since it would be a very friendly agreement, just acknowledging what happened in the first hotel and what would we do this time around by when, if those same problems, which are very likely potentially to occur, a lot of rain causes delay in PG&E because they're trying to get people's power back on. They don't care about giving an okay on someone's electrical construction hotel. So, Lane, can we deal with this later? Come up with another agreement, a side agreement?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can talk with the property owner and come up with some type of reporting mechanism that if we have problems, that at least, like you said, we're getting advanced knowledge and trying to address that. Because I think your point is absolutely correct.
There is a section at 4.8 on page 14 for progress reports.
Thanks, Bob.
Still a certificate of completion.
Great. Yeah, that looks like that's great.
Actually, I think that would address that.
Yeah. So the details about what we do, like I'd rather give an extension for 2 months at the time of the delay than have all the stress we had on both sides of we had the city stress and we had the developer stress because everybody waited too long to consider the delays that happened. Many of them were understandable, but we didn't know about them until the end. There was money involved, so it was more stressful than this time might be. Here, there's default of the property involved, so that still can be very stressful. So if the progress report section was augmented by a subsequent side agreement, I just think that both the developer and the city would appreciate having that understanding of the process before we got into the process, before that happened.
Yeah. Well, actually, Mayor, as I read through that again, I think that section 4.8 really even goes into more detail than what you're requesting.
Well, it doesn't say that we, the council, would consider a length of time to extend the deadlines, and then we'd have to go back to the developer and get his agreement. You know, it doesn't talk about those kind of details. It just says that there'll be progress reports, but it doesn't say what the consequences would be.
Well, but I think some of the things you're talking about are covered by the force majeure provision.
Okay. All right, we'll just consider that and come back to us in the future and say, we don't need anything additional, or here's something we worked up because it would help.
Okay.
All right, I think we're ready for the public. So let's go to, everyone has up to 4 minutes. Just raise your hand in the public and we'll hear your comments and questions.
Mr. Mayor, would you like us to promote the developer first?
Yeah, that's our standard practice. I'm sorry. So we'll give up to 10 minutes for the developer and developer representation and presentation, should they want to tell us anything. And so we have, besides Harvey, who do we have, Matt?
And Mayor, I think at this point, you because the developer has already made a presentation before, as I talked with him today, he doesn't have any additional presentation or anything to make at this time. He'll just be available to answer any questions. And I think he's also has Sham here to answer questions.
And Indy. So let's just bring Sham over in case we have questions he wants to answer that Harvey wants him to answer. Okay, so let's go to the public. You all have up to 4 minutes. Just raise your hand. Give everyone another moment.
I'm here, Mayor and
Hi,
Council.
Sham. Happy New Year, Sham.
Happy New Year to all of you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
All right. Glad to have you. Let's go to Brian McCarthy. Hello, Brian. Happy New Year.
Hi, Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a frog in my throat there. I have a few concerns about the hotel project, and really a lot of it just has to do with this tight timeline that through no fault of really the council that you're on. And so I won't go into those, but I guess my more constructive comments are, and Vice Mayor Kathy Biala kind of touched on it, but when you look at those parcels, it was mentioned that it's already subdivided and the phasing is kind of already scheduled to occur. Phase one kind of on what I would say is the premium lot. That is the lot that is closest to the ocean. And I'm just wondering if there was ever any discussion about having phase one be on kind of maybe the non-premium lot in order to encourage the developer to actually finish the entire 3 hotels as a development. It just seems like that might be kind of an incentive to make sure the development comes to completion. And I understand with your tight timeline, it's probably not feasible to really entertain those discussions. But again, just wondering if that was at all something that the council discussed or staff. And if they haven't, or they haven't thought of it, if there's any conversation that might happen about that now. That's my only comment. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And we have discussed it and we'll go over that. along with any other responses to public comment, just a few minutes. Anybody else want to raise their hand before we close public comment? Okay, let's go to Tommy Bolea. Hello, Tommy. We're playing cat and mouse here. Go ahead, Tommy.
All right. Good evening to everybody. Was this the same developer that on the other hotel, the Marriott? Was he the one that kind of went belly up on the project? I don't know if it was the time of COVID and all that, and it kind of delayed the project. I guess the question is, was this the same person? And do you guys have anything in your current plans to, if something like that should happen again, you guys have that covered? And just so, and did he, I guess there was some impact fees from this original developer on the Marriott. Were those paid to the city? Because the guy was in a financial situation, and this looks like it's kind of repeating itself as far as the other hotel project. Just wondering, did the original developer on the Marriott hotel, did he pay all those impact fees to the city, or was it all waived? And is this, what kind of prevention is going to happen on this new hotel project moving forward? Looks like a pretty big project. Looks like there's a lot of timelines. Anything can possibly happen, I guess. It could rain, shortage of workers. I'm sure you guys have all that kind of covered, but just a tremendous project. The deadlines are like so tight that, my gosh, it's like it's desperate that we have this hotel. I'm assuming it is. I mean, the city needs income, no doubt about it. We're not denying that. It's just, there's ample workers to build this project, locals. Just wondering if you have more contingency plans in this new project moving forward. And I think that's all I have. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Anyone else with comments before we close public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. And Brian's question was, what kind of discussion do we have on requiring the back lot to be built before the front lot closest to the ocean? Lane, do you want to cover that? Or before you do, Lane, let's go to our city attorney. Bob, do you have input at this point?
No, not at this point, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Lane, can you answer that?
Sure. We definitely had discussions along that area. Because we're building 200 rooms, the larger lot is needed for that. And with the parcel number 2, the way the agreement is constructed, that purchase price, as Karen talked about earlier, is just based on a proportion of the square footage. After that first hotel, or the first 2 hotels are built and all the infrastructure is going to be in, that second parcel is going to be worth significantly more than just our proportionate price that we have built into the contract right now. Is basically for raw undeveloped land. And so we think there is going to be a lot of incentive for that second parcel to get built. And if it's not built, we will easily be able to find another hotelier to come in that property, just because all the infrastructure and everything is ready to go on that.
All right. And Brian also talked about a tight timeline, but I wasn't sure if he meant before March of this year, or if he meant the whole construction timeline leading out to 2025. And Tommy also referred to the tight timeline. And Tommy and Brian, I think the developer and the city staff negotiated these construction and other timelines so that there is no real timeline once we have this agreement in place prior to February of 2023. And then the first hotel basically needs to open, has to be completed in its construction by 2025. In June of 2025. So we don't believe that those timelines are that tight. Although they're a little bit ambitious, they're also very reasonable. So there's a balance between waiting too long and sitting on this project when, like you said, Tommy, the revenue coming into the city is sorely needed, and then causing it to be too soon so that we're making a problem by being unrealistic. So I think the timing has been mutually agreed upon by the two sides as being reasonable, maybe a little bit ambitious. Lane, you want to add to that?
No, I think you've really you covered that. It's a balance because we want it to move forward very quickly. We know the developer has invested a lot of money up front, and once they purchase that land, they already have their architects and all the money they're putting up front. They have a lot of incentive on their end to get construction going as quickly as possible, and so it was that balance. And we think those timelines are very doable. And again, the force majeure still gives them the ability that something unforeseen, whether it be labor shortages, materials, another pandemic, they still have the ability to exercise that force majeure. And so I think we're all very, very comfortable with those timelines.
Okay, and Tommy asked, is it the same developer as the first Marriott? Yes. Did the developer go belly up? We'll never know how close the financial stress was going to cause it came to causing a default, but the developer made it through. And the controversy and stress that you may remember, Tommy, really was revolving around a $1 million incentive, whether or not we should pay that incentive, even though the developer missed the date, the drop dead date by a few months. The developer wanted the incentive anyway, because the developer needed it for his bank loans, et cetera. And so there was a lot of stress on both sides. This time around, did we cover that? We sort of covered it, Tommy, because there is no incentive. So it can't play out again that we have a controversy over incentive because the developer is late. There is no incentive included in the agreement package tonight. And then you asked about the impact fees, whether they have been paid in full, and I believe they have, but I want the city manager to confirm that.
Yes. Before any building permit can be pulled, they have to pay all their fees, including their impact fees up front.
Now, Lane, wasn't there a delay in when the impact fees were to be paid on hotel number one?
Yes. Yes, there were. I can't remember.
That's okay as far as the details, but
We structured a payment with interest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it wasn't exactly like some other agreements. He had some more time to pay the impact fees on hotel number one with interest. And Lane, you're telling us that that's behind us now.
That's correct. And
Okay.
and I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I will say with your projections with the hotel, as far as TOT, the Marriott has almost tripled what we were as far as our projections for the hotel, and that gets back to the quality of the hotel built, but also the management of the hotel. They're able to set their rates, they monitor the region and how the hotel is managed and run. It's one of the most successful hotels around, and he's tripled what we'd estimated our annual TOT revenue to be.
Okay. Did I miss any questions before we go to Councilmember Christina Medina? And Bob Rathie, your hand is still up. Did you have input at this time?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Christina
that was
Medina
bad.
Dirksen? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I ask my question, Mr. Mayor, would you just, I'm about education tonight. Can you just define what the incentive is or was, just for the 12 people here who might not quite understand the nomenclature or the process?
Yeah, the city council did something unusual for our city. We provided an incentive of $1 million. If the developer would have opened his doors at the first hotel, the Marriott, by December 30th of 2017, then we would give him $1 million out of our general fund. And that would be paid off by paying his impact fees and letting him share his revenue that he was bringing in. So if he brought in $750,000 in hotel taxes the first year, and the second year, he would keep half of that each year. And so the city would only get half of the generated revenue from the hotel until he was made whole on the incentive. But that never played out because he did not open the doors by a certain date. And so the incentive was $1 million. If you open by a certain date, you get this million. So we incentivized the expedited construction of the hotel with a carrot at the end. We did the same thing with the theater and the hotel in the same year. So we've had two incentive situations in our city's history, the theater and this hotel number one. But that doesn't relate to tonight's hotel because it's not part of the deal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes we talk over people's heads and they don't remember the background or they don't have the history. So I think it's important to remember our audience. My question is for Mr. Dodwall and Shyam, if possible. I want to say thank you very much for seeing the vision of Marina. And one of the things that I'm wondering as you progress in this hotel, might it be possible, or have you considered improving our internet capabilities in that dead spot there? I know this is outside of our contract that we're talking about tonight, but I just want to know whether or not you have capacity, you have thought about, and may be able to either generate some revenue or help us, or have considered cell towers, because that is a notoriously bad area for people who live in the dunes and for anybody driving through Marina. We always have to tell our people on the other side, I'll call you right back. So that's my question for you. Thank you.
Or Shyam. Go ahead, Harvey or Shyam.
Yeah, this is Harvey Dadwal. Happy New Year to everybody. Council Member Christina, yes, I tried to work with the company so they can put a tower on the Spring Hill Suite, but somehow they couldn't find any company who can do that. So anyway, I do have a space on Spring Hill Suite. If any company, they are most welcome to put tower on the top, and I think that will solve the situation.
Okay, well, thank you for attempting or trying. In some ways, I would imagine it might be a revenue generator, because in some places you charge rent for these things. So any efforts you could make on our behalf would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. So we're into comments now, and a couple of comments I want to make are that this developer that we're about to consider voting in favor of this agreement is the only developer who's been able to crack the nut, the Gordian knot of building and opening a hotel in Fort Ord. Other cities and the Marina have wanted to, other developers have come and gone, but this hotel group is the only one that has managed to open the hotel. And it has been extremely successful by Marriott standards, by the city's standards, and I think by the hotel owners' standards. So one reason that I wanted to choose this over the others, one of the many reasons, was because we believe that this hotel group is the best hotel group. They've demonstrated that they're the ones who know how to do it. There's not an out-of-town group that thinks they're going to do it, but they've never done it, and they'll fall by the wayside like other developers in our region have fallen when they've tried to build a hotel on Fort Ord after the last 25 years. There's only been one hotel opened on Fort Ord. It's with this hotel group. They learned a lot. They made some mistakes. They did some great things, and they're going to be able to parlay all of that experience into the second hotel, and that speaks a lot, their experience. The $3.2 million that we've gotten cold cash into our general fund, exceeding the projections that we were expected to get from this hotel, means that our parks and our streets, our public safety recreation program, all over Marina, benefit from hotel number one that's been there since 2017. That it was 3 months late to open makes no difference to anyone today. And in 20 years, no one's going to care then either that this hotel opened its doors 3 months later than some forecast construction plan would have had it. The hotel family was under incredible stress and felt burned by the city, but the city had its own perspective that we did the best we could, and that was the contract. And we really just honored the contract, although we had the discretion to maybe give some room for some incentive money, but we didn't. And so the developers backed this for hotel number two. We're on the same page. We wish the most success for this hotel group, and we're very appreciative for hotel number one, the Marriott that they've brought to Marina. It's a beautiful asset that community groups, nonprofits meet there regularly. It's just been a wonderful success for both parties involved. So we hope that this hotel will be just as successful and maybe more, because it's much larger and it's forecast to bring in $2.2 million per year. We hope, Godspeed, that everybody is successful this time around. And with Sham on their development team, and Indy is now 3-4 years more experienced, and Harvey himself, we think that they're even better prepared now than they were for hotel number one. But we thank them for what they've done, and we look forward, if we approve this tonight, we look forward to the next several years of getting this hotel ready, number two, to be open. Let's go to Councilmember Lisa Berkeley.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution of item number 6A from the January 11th, 2022 meeting, authorizing the city manager to enter into a hotel development agreement with Dadwell Management Group or its designee for the development of hotels on Opportunity Site 1A in the Dunes development.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Berkeley, seconded by Councilmember Burnett. Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Biala.
Thank you.
You're muted, Kathy, sorry.
Sorry. I want to reiterate some of what you have said, Mr. Mayor, because I have seen what a local developer has done for our community, and the amount of civic organizations that have been welcomed to have their meetings, including the Marina Chamber of Commerce, of which I'm a member of, and a board member, and many other groups have been welcomed there, and they're beautiful rooms with well-equipped rooms. And so I really appreciate that aspect. And I do want to emphasize that when you look at this hotel, it is vastly different from the usual sort of, the usual chain hotels that you see along the highways and whatnot. It is a really beautiful and unique facade, and I appreciate that, and I think that we have been really very privileged to have such a development in our community. So I want to thank the Dodwell Group and all of your team for coming to Marina. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's go to Councilmember Christina Medina Dirksen.
Thank you. I know we have a motion on the floor, but before we go there, I want to give thanks to our city manager for and the team for finding and going through finding a good project and going through very stringent due diligence. We had some others in the running, but when we compared, I guess, apples to apples, it was clear that working with a partner, it behooves us to work with a partner that we know. My big question was, have we ever been in litigation with Mr. Dodwell? And the answer was no. And when we think about big projects that come to town or come into our area, it's always going to go sideways on some technicality because trust isn't there or promises are not fulfilled. So I just want to say thank you to our city manager for taking us down this path, and staff, and Mr. Dodwell for really his commitment, and his team, his commitment to Marina. So I want to say thank you, and I look forward to continuing open conversation with the Dodwell Group and working very closely to give Marina finally, in conjunction with everything else that's going in town, we're in the right direction. So I just want to give everybody a round of applause for their due diligence in this matter. So thank you. I look forward to supporting this motion.
Thank you, Christina. And you reminded me that I need to say thank you to Lane and Karen and Bob and others who helped them, behind the scenes the last 6 months. They've been working harder than we'll probably ever know on this project while juggling a lot of other things, trying to get things done at the same time. But this particular project, Lane knew how important it was in various ways, financially and other ways. And he put his nose to the grindstone on probably several holiday weekends, et cetera. And he still has a long way to go that we don't see between now and February. We just see the milestones and the accomplishments, and we'll probably never understand, the work that goes into it. And yeah, he gets paid for this. It's his job, but his job doesn't get paid more if he puts himself out more and goes the extra mile on one or more projects. And on this one, he's probably going the extra mile. He probably has been going the extra mile for some time now, and he has a little bit of lift here still to go. And so, Lane, thank you, and to your team for getting this project through the various stages to tonight, where we can actually vote on it. But we wouldn't have such a good project and such a good partnership, because you've been in partnership with this particular development team since before the first hotel was built. And so you know them well, they know you well, you trust each other, and that trust, has to be earned. And you, the way you conduct your business, you have the trust of this hotel group, and that's why they're coming to us, again. Largely, they'll tell you it's because of their relationship with our city manager. So thank you very much to Lane and your team.
Thank you.
Okay, Anita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Medina Dirksen. Councilmember Burnett.
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala.
Yes.
Mayor Delgado.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
I say yes too. I couldn't get my mute off, so yes, unanimous.
I got you.
Congratulations, Indy and Harvey and Sham, and to the rest of your team. We look forward to the next several years of working through the construction with you. And you have a good team on the city that's going to be very collaborative.
Mayor, if I can mention one thing, just on the council's part, and I want the community to understand that how engaged the council has been on the price and terms as we've been really negotiating this for the past year. And as the council put out, so we're in a position to compete with other firms. We brought down incentives that were being discussed initially at $15 million to a project that has no incentives and actually is going to be better. And so a lot of that is because of the council's patience, the council's leadership, and the council's direction to give me the tools as we negotiate through this project to really end up where we're at. And so I really want to give the accolades and my thanks to the council for their leadership and supporting me putting this project together.
Thank you, Lane. And Harvey, you were also going to provide some input.
Thank you, everybody, actually, the whole council, from my heart. You trusted me to give me the opportunity to develop a beautiful project. And I promise I will do my best. And it would be a kind of, the hotel you will see, it won't be seen around, So this is my commitment. I know there are a lot of developers, they tried, but their reason was just to build and that's leave, that's about it. And me, I personally see everything I want to do. And I'm not going to compromise the vision I have. And I think it would be a beautiful, and everybody can be proud of that. And thank you very much, Lane. He trusted me, and even Mr. Mayor, you already said and appreciate what he did. Even he was answering my calls on the weekends. If I have any question, he right away answer, and if he doesn't, he get back to me right away. Even though when he was even on vacation. So I mean, I have a really, I do not have even words to say thank you to him, and basically the whole council who trusted me, and we definitely. Every step I'm talking to Mr. Lane and trying to make this project really nice, and Mr. Dr. Sham, who helping me a lot how to achieve and add every feature we can do, like make this hotel unique and a destination in city of Marina.
Thank you, Harvey. And I'm so excited that this is probably going to be the greenest hotel in the Monterey Bay area. That is really exciting for me. Thank you for that vision that you brought to the competition.
Thank you.
All right. I think we can say that we can adjourn at this point. Lane, did you have anything else?
Nope. We're
Okay.
got a lot of work to do now.
Yes. Thank you, Juan Lopez and Tina Nieto, and Doug McCown, our fire chief, Eddie Anderson, our commander, Matt, our assistant city manager, Anita, for guiding us through the votes and the agenda. And Guido, great to have you at our community development department. Donna White, thanks again for being with us tonight. Maybe she stepped out. And Bob, thanks for your leadership in the legal realm. Bob, you only have a couple more meetings with us. Well, maybe a bunch in January, but it's been good to have you, and we hope to keep in touch with you. And Karen, when did you really start, Karen? Did you start around 2000 with us? You're muted, but I remember you, I think in the 90s on Marina Heights, Hyper Snow.
1992.
1992, you've been with us. 8 plus 21, that's 29 years.
30.
Yes, 30 years.
I had a meeting with the then city manager the day I came back from parental leave. And my son is now 30 and a parent himself.
And how old is their city of Marina? Are we like 45 years?
1975, so we're 46 years.
You've been with us. Wow.
Yep, a long time.
And Bob Raffy's firm has been with us since before day one, since before.
Correct. Yeah, Rob is
That
first and only
longevity,
city attorney.
that longevity matters, got continuity. All right, everyone. Good to see you all. Have a nice evening.
Have a good evening.